Under scorching sun, we're driving deep into Turkana, towards Kenya's most remote villages, over the riverbeds that have stayed dry as the last 4 rainy seasons have failed. Our guide is Silas, a humanitarian worker who grew up here and now watches on as the landscape becomes increasingly desolate.
The number of trees have badly decreased. There's no pasture, there's no water. So the number of livestock per household or per person has badly decreased. Things are changing really, really fast.
Already used to drinking very little water, the villagers we meet are cutting back even more. Because this is how hard it's become to source. They're not digging down 1 foot now, but 10. The water's dirty and it's risky. Sometimes the holes collapse. But they're thirsty and they have no choice. 10 people have died already in this drought, young and old, Alice tells me. Our crops have failed, our animals are sick and dying, so we have no milk or meat. More than half of this herd has perished. The weak are just clinging on. Alice invites us into her hut to show us what she has to feed herself and 4 children. It's a few foraged berries and some leftover husks of grain.
The berries fill people up, but they cause terrible diarrhea, and malnutrition makes them vulnerable to malaria. I'm afraid more deaths are inevitable.
There are some government cash handouts to help during droughts, and the Turkana people sell firewood to make money. It's a day's trek to the nearest town to spend it, and it means entering the world of rocketing food prices.
The economy is really bad. If I buy vegetables at 100 shillings and the flour too, I don't have enough money for cooking oil. And the food after cooking isn't even enough to feed my children.
90% of grain in East Africa comes from Ukraine. After supplies were cut for 6 months because of the war, shipments have now restarted, but there's still a shortage. So flour, Lucy explains, has doubled in price this year.
So as oil, rice, pasta and sugar. Customers are cutting back, and if I can't pay my rent, the landlord has threatened to take my stock instead.
Climate change and a rising cost of living are combining here with catastrophic consequences.
18 million people are food insecure because of the drought, and this number is going to rapidly increase if we don't do anything urgently about it. And climate change certainly isn't their fault, with Kenya, Ethiopia, Somalia being very low on the emissions. The food prices, the supply chain interruption for food, that is not the doing of the people who are affected.
Back in the village, and a mark of people's desperation, is that some are actually choosing to move here. Amoni and her family came last month from 20 miles away, drawn by the water in that hole 10 feet deep. She's clinging to the hope that this place offers a better chance of survival, as the world around her changes beyond her control.
Tessa is now back in the Kenyan capital, Nairobi. Tessa, the situation there, as you report, is terrible. So what is being done to help?
It certainly is, Simon. Many aid agencies believe that famine declaration is inevitable soon in Somalia, and that Ethiopia and Kenya might follow soon after. Famines aren't declared easily. A full 1/5 of people need to have no access at all to food. 1/3 of children must be severely malnourished. Now, some aid is getting through, but not enough, and there are a number of reasons for that. In Somalia and Ethiopia, there are conflicts which makes it very hard. Aid agencies are increasingly stretched with food prices sky high. It's expensive to provide aid, and refugee crises in Ukraine, for example, are taking up resource and attention. Now, charities are asking the West to do more, but it's very hard, especially when domestic politics, for example, are taking up that space on the news agenda that could be used to raise awareness. But I think it's really important that people know what is going on here. Having seen it for myself, what really strikes you is that these are people living in one of the most inhospitable places on earth, but they are remarkable and they are resilient and they are being pushed to the brink by a perfect storm. People are dying already, and I'm afraid there is worse to come.